Paperwork came across my desk on a Tuesday, which is the only reason I remember the date. Range safety NCOs do not recall Tuesdays. We recall the shot that shouldn't have landed. The wind call nobody believed. The moment a rifle does something a rifle is not supposed to do. Tuesday paperwork is not that. But this particular Tuesday, I signed a form that I have carried folded in my breast pocket for 11 years, and I will carry it until I don't carry anything anymore. Her name on the form was Corporal Dana Rice. Assignment: Battalion Supply, Fort Britain. Reason for range removal: personnel not qualified for advanced marksmanship trial per MSGT Holt's discretion. I read that line, stamped it, filed the copy, handed her the original. She took it without looking at me. That was the first time I saw her face: square jaw, sun-cracked lips, the kind of stillness that doesn't come from being relaxed. It comes from deciding, a long time ago, that other people's noise is not your problem. I thought she was embarrassed. I was wrong about nearly everything that morning. Range Copperheads sits 40 miles from the main post. On a dry lakebed, the wind has never once stopped crossing. The Army uses it twice a year for the battalion sniper qualification trial, because the conditions are legitimately punishing. A sustained crosswind at the 1,000-meter mark that throws around 3 feet left if you don't correct, and a target array at distances up to 3,800 meters that, in 11 years of running safety there, I had never once seen a shooter connect on cold. The 3,800 was the trial's final position. It existed, our range officer liked to say, to show a man his ceiling. It was not designed to be hit. It was designed to be attempted and failed, so the shooter would understand something true about himself. Master Sergeant Dale Holt had run the battalion's shooting program for 6 years. He was not a cruel man. He was a precise one, precise about standards, precise about what a combat rifle is for, precise about who belongs on a qualification range, and who is wasting ammunition that belongs to someone else. When Corporal Rice submitted her name for the trial, she'd found the sign-up sheet in the armory, filled it out in her own handwriting, turned it in through proper channels. Holt read it and called me into his office. "Who authorized this?" he said. "The form doesn't require pre-authorization, Sergeant. It's an open battalion trial." He set the paper down. "She's a supply clerk." "Yes, Sergeant. Find out how she got on this list and make sure it doesn't happen on the range." I found out by asking her. She was stacking water cans in the supply bay, a job that does not require much explaining. She'd heard about the trial from a corporal in the motor pool, that the range was open to battalion personnel, that she wanted to shoot. She said it the way you say you want coffee. A simple statement of a simple preference. I told her the master sergeant had concerns about her qualification level. She nodded once and said, "Okay, nothing else." I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. She showed up at Range Copperhead at 0600 the following Thursday with her gear in a bag and her paperwork in hand. Holt saw her at the line and walked over to me without breaking stride. "Get her off my range," he said. "Shh." Loud enough that the 9 shooters already prone at the 500-meter positions could hear every syllable. I know what game she's playing, but I don't have time for a supply clerk playing dress-up. Process her out. That was when I handed her the form. That was when she looked at me. Not at Holt, not at the 9 men watching from the line, not at the range officer standing near the timing board. At me. Her expression did not change. She took the paper, folded it once, put it in her chest pocket. Then she turned around and walked to the spectator berm 50 meters back, sat down on a sandbag and watched. She was still there 3 hours later when the trial went wrong. The 3,800-meter position is the last stage, and it runs in the afternoon, when the lakebed thermals are fully engaged and the crosswind has reached its daily peak. Command had sent 9 of the battalion's best, 2 scout snipers, designated marksmen, 4 rifle team leaders who had qualified expert every year of their careers. The round at 3,800 requires a wind call that accounts for 4 separate drift layers across the flight path, direction most ballistic computers at the time could only approximate. You had to feel the last 2 layers. Either you'd learned to feel them or you hadn't. The first shooter missed right by 6 feet. The second missed left, overcorrected. 5th miss, the range officer had stopped writing anything down. By the 7th, Holt was standing with his arms crossed and his jaw set, and nobody was talking. The 8th shooter sent 2 rounds and both went wide. The 9th, a scout sniper named Decker, who had the best wind-reading eye I'd ever seen at that range, sent 1 round, paused, sent a second. First cut the target edge. The second missed clean. Holt said nothing. The range officer looked at his clipboard and said, "No qualification. Trial incomplete." The silence on that lake bed is a specific kind of silence. It's not quiet. The wind doesn't stop for anyone. But the human noise goes out of it entirely. And what's left is just the open desert telling you something you didn't want to hear. That was when Corporal Rice stood up from the sandbag. She walked to the line, not to Holt, to the range officer. She said, "Sir, I'd like to request 1 round at the final position." The range officer looked at Holt. Holt looked at the range officer. Then Holt looked at her for the first time since he'd sent me to remove her. "You're not in this trial," he said. "No, Sergeant, I'm requesting a demonstration round. Not a qualification attempt. I'll sign a waiver." Holt opened his mouth. Then he closed it. Then he said something I did not expect. "Give her a round." I don't know why he said it. Later he told me he wanted the range officer to have something to write in the log. A data point. 1 more failed attempt. This one from a supply corporal. So there would be no ambiguity about how hard the 3,800 actually was. That is the charitable version of what he told me, and I believe it's partly true. She took the round from the range officer, chambered it herself, and went prone at the position Decker had just vacated. She did not adjust the scope. She asked one question, "What's the flag doing at 2,000? And I told her it was running about 8 degrees off perpendicular, gusting slightly. She nodded. Then she was still. I have seen a lot of shooters go still before a long shot. Most of them go still in a way that looks like effort. The jaw tightening, the breathing becoming deliberate and visible, the body pressing down into the rifle, like they are trying to hold it to the earth by force. She went still the other way. She seemed to leave. The rifle was there. She happened to be behind it. What was happening in her mind I cannot tell you, but her body had no more tension in it than a sandbag. The round broke, and the sound came back to us a half-second later. A flat crack over the top of the wind. The range officer had his spotting scope up. He said nothing for 2 full seconds. Then he said, "Impact. Target. Nobody moved. Impact confirmed. 800 meters. Center mass." Holt stood at the scoring table with his arms still crossed. He did not look at the spotting scope. He looked at her. Still prone, working the bolt back, setting the empty brass aside with 2 fingers, the way you do when you intend to keep it. Then he uncrossed his arms. He walked the length of the firing line. It is about 60 meters from the scoring table to position 1, and he walked every foot of it in silence while 200 Marines who had come out to watch the trial stood on the spectator berm and said nothing. He stopped 3 feet from where she was getting to her feet. He came to attention. He rendered a salute. Right hand, crisp, held, and he held it until she returned it. Behind us, on the berm, someone started clapping, then the rest of them. She picked up her brass, in her shirt pocket, next to the removal form I had given her that morning, and walked off the line without saying a word to anyone. I went back to my desk that evening and found her removal paperwork in the outbox, still waiting to be filed with battalion admin. Get out of the box. I folded it the way she'd folded her copy, once, lengthwise, and I put it in my breast pocket. I have never filed it. It is the only record that says she was removed from that range. And I decided the record was wrong. And I decided I was the one who got to decide that, and I have not lost a night of sleep over it since. I don't know where she went after Fort Britain. I heard a name once years later, Pale Rider, attached to a joint task force operating out of a place I'm not going to put in writing. I heard a number 2, a distance, but I'm not going to put that in writing either. Some things belong to the desert and the wind and the people who were standing there. What I know is what I saw. A woman sat on a sandbag for 3 hours after a man sent her off his range, and she waited. And when her moment came, she took it with 1 round and no wasted motion. That's the whole of it. I spent 11 years trying to think of something to add, and I keep coming back to the same answer. There's nothing to add. That's already everything.